Hello, this is the Joy Workshop class number 2, and the subject today is happiness versus joy. So what's the difference between happiness and joy? That happiness is connected to the circumstances and joy is not. Happiness and unhappiness happen, and joy comes from within. It's something that we cultivate. And so for centuries, we thought that happiness was only reserved, because we connected happiness to the circumstances, we thought that it was reserved for those who had it all. And it's not true, because there are people who have the biggest houses, they're handsome or beautiful, they're wealthy, they're successful, and sometimes they're not happy. Look at Hollywood stars. So if luck doesn't have anything to do with joy, then we can start to think about what joy means and where it comes from. And to give you an example, think of someone when you're at the gym and you look at this woman working out and she has a wonderful figure. You wouldn't think, oh, she's so lucky. No, you're actually looking at her and she's working out and she's working really hard to have the figure that she has. So that is the product of her own effort, and that probably brings her joy. Or if you think about someone who has a PhD, you wouldn't say to them, oh, you're so lucky because you have a PhD. We know that PhDs don't fall from the sky. You have to work really hard and you have to study for many, many years to get a PhD. So those are examples of the difference between happiness and joy. Happiness, because if it's connected to the circumstances, if you have what you want, then you're happy. And if that is taken away from you, you are unhappy. And a very simple example is good food. Good food can be confused with pure happiness. When we're eating this delicious food, we're very happy. And when it ends, we're not as happy. And it's just temporary. It's not lasting happiness. And joy is lasting. So it is important to start thinking about the difference between these subjects so that we can understand our mind and start observing ourselves. And we will find out that when we are happy, we're thinking a certain way. And when we're unhappy, we're thinking in a different way. And one of the challenges we face is that academic education focuses on core subjects, which are English, math, social studies, history, geography, biology, etc. And there's not much knowledge about happiness that has been shared with us. And one of the reasons why that is because it's new. This knowledge is pretty new for humanity. The two main areas that have approached this subject are psychology and religion. So psychology has studied the mind and has observed people who have mental illness and has tried to resolve those issues and help them have mental health. And religion gives us core beliefs, faith, hope. It trains us to practice forgiveness and gratitude and optimism, and that helps us be happy. The thing about psychology is that for 100 years, psychology focused only on mental illness. So it's understandable, because when someone is about to die, or they're not functioning, or they're locked in a room, then it is urgent to help them come out of their depression. Or if they're schizophrenic, we don't want to lock them up. We need to find a med that will help them not see people or hear voices. Or if someone has bipolarity disorder, once again, we try to find the right meds or the right treatment to make that person functional. But it was only until the year 2000 when someone started thinking about happiness and mental health. And they started thinking, why don't we study mental health and try to replicate it? If we see why somebody's happy or stable or functional, maybe we can help other people get there. The person who did this, the first person who did this, is Barbara Fredrickson. This is a research that she did. She got a grant and she was starting to study positivity. And this is the beginning of positive psychology, which is brand new. It's only been around for 20 years. And here she talks about the 3-to-1 ratio. So what she's saying is that we cannot expect to be happy 100% of the time. We could expect to be happy 3-to-1. That's 75% of the time. If we have challenges in life, we're supposed to focus and get them over with and resolve them and move along and then go back to being happy. But it's just unrealistic to be happy all the time. There are real challenges, and it's normal to be afraid or to be angry or to be sad when those challenges come along. And the father of positive psychology is Martin Seligman. Martin Seligman continued with the studies that Barbara Fredrickson started, and he has been trying to prove why happiness is also important, both of them. So the feelings that we know that have to do with survival are fear and pain. People will change when there's fear and pain. If you don't care about your body or you're not vain, but then one day the doctor says you're on the border of getting diabetes, then you will change your diet. If you think that your marriage is just fine and your husband can just take it all, and then one day your husband says, if you don't change, I'm going to divorce you, then you change. So pain and fear will make us change. But happiness and joy are really important for survival and evolution. It's not as evident because when people are happy, it sounds like there's nothing urgent. But if we don't have happy moments and if we don't have joy in our hearts, when challenges come along, we don't have the right reserves to survive. Like the pandemic. One of the things that keeps us going is that we think about the past and we remember when we used to travel, when we would gather with our friends, when we would visit our relatives, and that keeps us going. The hope and the faith that those moments will come back. They will not come back exactly the way they were, but they will come back and we have something to look forward to. And I want to read you something that he wrote, Seligman wrote about this. And he's basically quoting Fredrickson, and he's saying, Fredrickson claims that positive emotions have a grand purpose in evolution. They broaden our abiding intellectual, physical, and social resources, building up reserves we can draw upon when a threat or opportunity presents itself. When we are in a positive mood, people like us better. And friendship, love, and coalitions are more likely to cement. So you've all probably heard of the phrase, families that pray together stay together. Well, families that play together also stay together. Happy moments create strong bonds, and we need the happy moments as a reserve. And happy moments have to do with friendship and love and networking, and all those things are necessary for survival. The thing about happiness is that happiness will make us want to explore and experiment and meet new people and go out there. And sadness is also necessary. Without sadness, we don't have the time to reflect on the mistakes that we have made. And the challenges we face are usually the product of poor decisions. So sadness is necessary for us to reflect. And also they're necessary for bonding. When we are sad, when we're afraid, when we're confused, if we're honest about it, that will help our relationships evolve. But we need both. So just to quote a little example, if you haven't seen Inside Out, it came out in 2015. It's from Pixar. I suggest you watch it. It's a funny, happy movie. And it's about this girl. Her name is Riley. She moves from Minnesota to San Francisco. And she's struggling. And the interesting thing about this movie is that there's 5 characters inside her mind. And the character that is in charge of everything is Joy. And Joy wants everything to go smooth and to go perfect. And she doesn't want anything to go wrong. And because the change is so challenging for this little girl, she starts arguing with her parents. She struggles at school. She's trying to make friends. And sadness needs to be part of the picture. And sadness needs to help things settle down. And so the climax of the movie is when Joy and sadness work together. And they're remembering. And Joy says there's the happiest day in Riley's life, and Joy remembers that day. And then sadness says, I remember that day. That was also the saddest day in her life. And Joy's like, no, what are you talking about? And then sadness, they're playing this little movie, and she says, rewind. And they find out Riley was playing in a hockey game, and she loses, and she made a poor move, and she was very embarrassed, and she was very sad. And when she gets home, she's very sad. And then her parents console her, and they're all sitting together and they're embracing each other and they're watching the sunset. And so that becomes the happiest moment. And happy moments can only be happy if we have sad moments. If we were all happy all the time, it wouldn't be happiness. It would just be normal. And that sometimes happens to people who are very privileged and very pampered. They're steady, and because they haven't had any challenges, they don't appreciate their blessings. So what's important in this is that so happiness cannot be the goal. Happiness is just a product of effort. But joy could be the goal, or serenity can be the goal, or equanimity can be the goal, or contentment. Contentment means we are contained, and contentment is that we are satisfied with the present circumstances, whether they be good or bad. Equanimity means even-minded. Anima is not soul, is mind. And equal is even. When we're even-minded, we're steady, whether the circumstances are positive or negative. And the serenity, so think of serene lake. When we're serene, we're at peace, we're contained. Now, the word serenity, if you research it, it has been branded by the addiction world because of the serenity prayer. It's not the happiness prayer. And the word serenity is used because it's God, give me the strength to change what I can change, the serenity to accept what I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. So serenity has to do with accepting the circumstances that are out of our control. And it's important to talk about therapy and religion, because the people who only believe in therapy, the challenge about that is that in therapy, the individual is 100% responsible. One of the traps in therapy is that people go to therapy just to complain. And if you just complain about your life, you'll become very good at it, and you will always find out what's wrong with your life. And if you like to play the victim, then you will continue playing the victim. And if you stop having a relationship, you will go to another relationship and play the victim again. For those who only believe in religion and believe that everything is in God's hands, the issue with that is that you can pray all you want, but you still have to put in the work. And so there's a joke, there's a flaw, and this man is like, God will save me. And he's in the roof of his house waiting and praying. And then a boat comes along in the water and says, hop on, we need to go. I mean, this is going to continue flooding. And he says, no, God will save me. And then at the very end, a helicopter comes along and they throw him a ladder. And he doesn't climb, and he says, no, I have faith. God will save me. And he drowns. And when he gets to heaven, he says to God, I had 100% faith in you. And God says, like, what? I sent you a boat and a helicopter. What are you talking about? So there needs to be a balance between us understanding our minds and our emotions. That is psychology. And there needs to be faith and hope that things will get better and that there's a higher power and we are being supported by a higher power. But there has to be a balance between the both. So we already talked about positive psychology. And the other thing about positive psychology is that in psychology, nobody ever judges patients. But in psychology, there's no moral or virtue. Virtue is part of religion and philosophy. But in psychology, they don't talk so much about virtue, but we do need virtue to be happy. We need to distinguish right from wrong. And so if we can forgive, we'll be better. If we have gratitude, we'll be better. If we're optimistic, we'll be better. If we're compassionate, we'll be better. And so we need to address both. Just the last thing about therapy and psychology, there was a big boom for Prozac, and then a book came along that was called Listening to Prozac. And it showed that people who started taking Prozac did not want to stop taking it. And it's called a cosmetic medication because it makes people look better. And they didn't want to stop taking it because they said, no, I like me with these meds. I'm outgoing, I'm more social, etc. But the point of meds is just to help people out, and then people should just stop taking them. And the thing about this is that there's evolutionary psychology, and there's things that our body does, like vomit, shake, faint, diarrhea, sweat, all these things. And the body knows when there's a real circumstance and there's an impulse, a physical impulse. But to show you that the body knows what's going on, when you cut onions and you cry, those tears don't have toxins in them. Only the tears of sorrow have toxins in them. And the body has a memory, an evolutionary memory. So, for example, the grandchildren of the Holocaust survivors had nightmares of the concentration camps. How did that information get transmitted? It's beyond me. I don't know. But the body knows. And so if we practice gratitude and we become better at it, we will change our perspective even to very, very challenging circumstances. If your house is on fire and you come out of your house and you have your family with you, you don't cry and say, we lost everything. You look around yourself and you touch your arms and you touch your legs and you say, thank God nothing happened to us. and the house is just stuff. So what story you tell of yourself will determine the experience that you have. So if you practice gratitude, which is a habit, you will start amplifying your good memories. And the more you create good memories, there's a network in our brain, and good memories connect to other good memories. And if we become good at it, then our life becomes more positive than negative. So that's a homework. Practice gratitude and observe your thought process. And if you start getting negative, change your thought and change your experience. Alrighty, thanks. Bye.